It is devastating to our national consciousness that so many Americans struggle with hunger on a regular basis, especially in the wealthiest civilization in the history of our planet.
2 bags, 1 set.
We throw away 40% of all the food in this country every day, which is numerically more than enough to solve the problem of hunger for every human being in our country. The amount of land that we dedicate to growing the food that we throw away is the size of the state of Pennsylvania.
My name is Jayne Wright-Velez. I'm the executive director here with the Food Bank of Central Louisiana. You're right, we throw away billions of pounds of food in this country, and there's so many people that don't have enough to eat. Last year, we almost doubled our distribution because of the pandemic. Before that, we would distribute maybe 6.5 million pounds a year, and last year we did over 11 million pounds.
I think for us in America, when we think of hunger, right, we think of starvation. We grew up with the commercials of like the starving children in Africa, you know, so call this number and for 37 cents a day, you can feed a family and those things. And so seeing those images just isn't really the case of what we deal with many times. Food insecurity is a technical term from the USDA that talks about, you know, having the resources. It's an economic term, right? Like at the end of the week or at the end of the month, do you ever run out of money or do you ever run out of food or money to buy more food and the things that you want? For too many people, that's often a chronic situation, which has so many more, you know, negative outcomes attached to that.
That beauty. Throw a little rice with it if you want, but I need mine like this. Put mine in the bowl and have a party. My name is Michelle, named after pretty little French girls because my mom had a thing for that, but I love my name because it's a classic name. And I love food, playing with the children and being outdoors, even though I kind of sweat like a pig. I work at Gulf Coast. I'm a caregiver. Yeah, nice. The pay is reasonable enough. I make $8 an hour, so. It pays what I need. As long as I can pay my bills and still have a little McDonald's money, I'm good.
Most food banks are doing the work with the partner agencies. They don't serve families directly from their facility. We did it started out of an emergency where one of our partner agencies wasn't able to deliver their food boxes one month, and we did it. And then, you know, it kind of grew from there.
With the combination of my food stamps that I get, thankfully, and the boxes, I space it out so that when I get my box, which is usually the first half of the month, I can use those because they have the powdered milk and they have different essentials like that I can use, because you mix that in with any kind of chocolate cereal, you can't tell the difference. And I've learned how to make the milk to where the kids think it's skim milk rather than powdered milk.
About half of the families that we serve receive SNAP benefits. So, you know, you have that don't.
The myth is that there's one safety net that sits underneath everybody, and there's not. There's a multitude of safety nets.
For every meal that a Louisiana food bank distributes or puts on somebody's table, SNAP provides 9 meals. The thing that always raises eyebrows is just how little money you can bring in and be eligible for these programs.
State governments administer the SNAP program within their states. There are extraordinarily bureaucratic barriers to improving access to food. We have a child and adult care food program that operates after school, and then we have a summer food service program. Well, why do we have two programs?
I think that these federal food assistance programs are essential tools for addressing food insecurity, but I also think that they're Band-Aids. And until we address the root causes of food insecurity, poverty, structural racism, we're going to continue to see food insecurity in this country.
It's fairly easy to get most things, but there are some things like specialty foods for my daughter that we're still on the research with that because she has like reflux. You try to get the organic because it's supposed to be healthier and stuff, but the prices on that, I'm just like, we're gonna eat chemicals. I'll sacrifice, a pair of shoes. I'll hold these together with duct tape or something. I've learned some tricks with super glue, by the way. But that way they have shoes, clothes, food, and things like that so that I can, okay, well, we haven't tried this brand. Let's see if this works, even though it's a little pricier. And she'll tell me, well, Mom, I don't want you to spend $5 on that. But like I told her, this is how you survive and you stay healthy. If this is what I got to do, this is what I got to do. It's a mom thing.
We can't food bank our way out of food insecurity. Not eating healthy is part of food insecurity as well, because to eat healthy, you have to spend more.
Our George Foreman put this on. Put that close for now.
Are you excited?
Of course. It smells amazing. It's nice and juicy. It might be a little rare. Cool. We good to go?
Yep.
All right. Cool. I kind of grew up, being abused physically and mentally, verbally. And I got away from that situation. Unfortunately, my mother passed away at the age of 8 from brain cancer and sickle cell. And at that time, I was bouncing around through group homes and foster homes and RTFs, which are residential treatment facilities. And, growing up in the system, you don't really tend to eat healthy. They don't care about the children's health and their wellness, to be honest. I mean, as much as the government does was the welfare of the kid, but when they're in a hospital or in a residential treatment facility, they're not focused on a breakfast, lunch, and dinner. They're not focused on those snacks. They don't care. They're feeding the masses, essentially. They're feeding over somewhere between 50 to 150, 200 kids on a campus, and they got to feed them 3 meals a day. I always felt like I needed to hoard food. Even when I got with my family, I would always I would hoard food underneath my bed. I'd put food in my dresser. I had food in my room. So as a kid, it really didn't affect me. I was always running around playing and whatnot. But as I got older, when I got adopted and I was in middle school, all that sugar would have me hyped up. And I was taking medication at the time. I was taking Adderall and I was taking medication for bipolar and depression and for PTSD as well, and for ADHD. So those medications would affect my appetite and it would affect my mood and how I would act.
Food insecurity has a number of negative implications for health, and this is true in children as well. Mm-hmm. First of all, we know that food insecurity is associated with poor diet quality, and that can have really long-term impacts for diet-related disease, things like obesity and diabetes. We've also seen associations between experiencing food insecurity in childhood and poor cognitive, behavioral, and psychosocial outcomes.
In college, when I was on my own, when I actually formed diabetes, I left Iowa and I was at 297 when I left Iowa, and I was a pre-diabetic. I was borderline diabetic, they said, and I transferred to Syracuse, and by the time I got to Syracuse, I was 320 pounds, and I was a full-on diabetic. After football in Syracuse and the NFL stuff, I completely stopped taking care of my diabetes, and it led to this amputation here. I had a podiatrist that cut my foot open on my left foot, which led to surgery on my left foot. But then this happened, and just, everything just started going on. And I thought to myself, John, you can't lose your foot.
It's almost like there's environments built in order to to make these almost like to compound these issues?
The built environment, I think, is really anything that you think of that's sort of man-made, all of the structures and infrastructure that we build to live within an urban or even a rural environment, whether people live in neighborhoods with access to healthy or unhealthy food retail. So this can be both physical distance to these types of stores or restaurants, or it can be sort of a question of density. Do you live in a neighborhood where there's a fast food outlet on every street corner, or do you live in a neighborhood where you can walk to the grocery store, or you have access to a grocery store on a transit line that's near your house?
For the people that live in food deserts, if they have SNAP benefits, then the convenience store is their grocery store many times. And of course, those prices are higher. There's not a lot of fresh food available. It's a bigger challenge.
Like it's like low income fooding. Instead of low income housing, you go to a low income place like Dollar General to get your food. Dollar General has some things that are healthy, but they don't have everything. They don't have fresh fruit and vegetables, and it's because of the system. It's oppression. It's a big oppression system. But like, it's just you gotta pop your head out of some places. Like I know what's going on. I'm knowledgeable.
So I think one of the really complicated dynamics that we have with our federal food assistance policies is that they all fall under the USDA and the Farm Bill. And the USDA is responsible for setting agricultural policy and then also for setting these food assistance policies. So there's this sort of inherent tension built into the Farm Bill between political groups that are interested in agricultural supports and political groups that are generally more in urban areas thinking about food assistance and poverty. And I think that creates a sort of difficult tension and dynamic that has to be balanced in one big piece of policy, namely the Farm Bill.
If you lack the compassion to understand what hunger does to human beings and how debilitating hunger is as a fundamental human condition, if you merely look at it from economics, the number of sick days in workplaces, the number of kids who are missing school, the rapidly accelerated healthcare costs associated with food insecurity, from any metric, from any measurement, worker productivity, student learning, preserving health and avoiding and averting higher healthcare costs, by any economic measure, hunger is a terrible, terrible investment. We shouldn't invest in hunger. We should invest in food security. We should invest in making sure that everyone has access to the food that they need. Because whether you look at it from human compassion and dignity or economics or any other lens, hunger is devastating to our national purposes.